Hello, welcome to another video. Thought I'd do things a bit different today for a change. So I hope you're keeping well, hope you're staying safe. It is hot at the moment out there, crikey, it is. Don't know how hot it is in there, it's about 31 degrees Celsius and it's only 12:30 in the afternoon. So yeah, I hope you're keeping cool, I hope you're keeping safe. Today's video, I want to talk to you. I'm going to go for a walk around my flat today. Today's video, I want to talk to you about the challenge around trying to. You work in an organisation where equality is very, very important, but you're in a kind of scenario where you want to try and ramp things up, get people to think about inequality more, get people to think about health equity more, and try and create a set of conditions where it's front and center of what people do, and it becomes core to and not, I suppose, peripheral to the business of what it is you're involved in. So whether you work in a healthcare organisation, whether you work in public health, and anything you do. You've already seen it in my previous videos. I'll bang on about how important health inequalities are. I'll bang on about how important addressing equality or inequalities are in any context. But yeah, actually how to do that. I don't think we've ever really had a conversation about how you go about doing that. But I had a lot of focus on things like doing a health equity assessment. We've had conversations around different things around why addressing health inequalities is important. But then actually when it comes down to the how, we really got to think of the big picture. So let's get a bit psychological, shall we? So if people want to change their behaviour, or if you want to change someone's behaviour, really fundamentally, they're going to need to want to do that and be able to do that. So having the capacity to change behaviour is really, really important. And that counts for anything at all. If you want to change something and it involves changing people's behaviour, there's two things. They've got to want to and they've got to be able to. So that's probably the most paramount takeaway from this today. Secondly, let's think about the context in which you're trying to change people's behaviour. If you want them to think more about health inequalities or equality or equity or whatever kind of context it is you're looking at. If we look at it from a healthcare perspective, people's, I think, understanding of what population health management is, its definition, is really, really different. Traditionally, it's massively focused on data and insight and intelligence. Of course it is. That remains the case now. But actually, it is a lot more to that. Ultimately, this is about people. This is about people. And if we think about trying to change people's behaviour, then data and insight alone isn't going to do that. Ultimately, being relating to people is really what starts to get those changes. That's why I spoke right at the start of the video about the importance of, if you want to change people's behaviour, they've got to be want to and they're able to. But actually, I'm not just talking here about changing population's behaviour. Actually, really talking about changing the system's behaviour. So staff, volunteers, anyone who's responsible for providing or commissioning a service around improving health and well-being. I'm also talking about changing their behaviour as well. So the same premise applies. If we want to create a set of conditions where we are trying to change people's behaviour, talk about staff here, they've got to want to and they've got to be able to, and that's what I want to dig deeper into. So yeah, building on the context, population health management, it means different things to different people. So how we design solutions to problems that people face in our population, using a population health management approach. We've really got to kind of get to grips with what population health management means to people. The other thing is that people have, depending on what their role is, they'll have varying degrees of knowledge, skills and confidence around how we can go about addressing health inequalities. That's really, really important. I mean, that's why you look at things like training, etc., like that. And then the other thing to bear in mind is depending on what people's day-to-day job is, there's two things that come to mind here. Number one, do they have the time to be able to explore the things that you care so passionately about? And actually, really, do they actually value it? Do they actually see the value in it? Do they see what matters to what matters to them? We looked at this more in detail in the previous video that came out a few weeks back. And yeah, I think this is why it's probably important that we follow that video up with. If we know what the value is, then how do we go about channeling that into something actually changing people's behaviour? We are now moving, well, certainly the NHS is evolving. There's loads of structural change coming up, which is making people really anxious. A lot of the colleagues that I work with are quite anxious about that, so I'm not really sure what's happening. But things are slowly kind of coming all to light. And one of the biggest things, I suppose, one of the big words that comes out is this move towards more strategic commissioning. What that means, again, means different things to different people. It's not really a single definition for it, really. I've got my definition for it. Others that I work with in my organisation, and you'll have your own definition of it as well. There's not a single definition. So actually then there's an opportunity to define that in a way that it matters to us. And when we're defining it, really I think we'll be doing ourselves a massive disservice if we're not thinking about the role that health inequalities plays. And the reason for that is, let's go back to that. Let's go back to the, if you look at the numbers, if you look at the Dalgram rainbow, around 80% of the factors that contribute towards people's health and well-being are nothing at all to do with access to medical care. That 80-20 rule. So you've got factors like the environment, factors like the air we breathe, factors like wealth inequalities, so what assets people have, how much money they've got left spending over it, even if they have any assets beyond their home, which increasingly in this day and age is not the case. And then also really thinking about other factors like how people behave, so whether they smoke, whether they drink, the quality of their housing, the support they have for access to their community, do they have support from family and friends. All of these factors are actually what influences how healthy people are. And when they walk through those doors, be it a hospital, be it accessing something like social care, be it accessing their GP, all of those factors have played a role and will continue to play a role in how healthy they are and what kind of outcomes they have. So strategic commissioning, that's what we want to call it. How we buy and design services to meet the needs, to meet the health and well-being needs of people, really would be doing itself a disservice if its definition doesn't take that into account. So yeah, I'm hoping you're seeing now that actually really changing people's behaviour in our system is really, really important to get them to value more health inequalities, equity, whatever we wish to call it, whatever role you're in. Take into account equity, inequality is really, really important because of the wider determinants of health. Because a lot of the inequalities in the first place are created in those wider determinants. So I want to finish really the last few moments thinking about, well, how can we actually go about starting to tweak those behaviours? So the first thing, I guess, is policy. Policy can play a really, really good role in setting about a set of principles in which we expect an organisation, a community, a team, a set of functions, how we expect them to behave and what actions we expect them to take to be able to realise that. But policy is important in terms of our role. Policy is obviously not just the role of national government, but policy exists in all strings of life. And it's important that we co-design policy that's effective and meaningful and doesn't just end up being a lovely document on a shelf that we review every so often, but we live and breathe it. And actually good policy will help win the hearts and minds of people that have been involved in co-designing it. Good policy will be embedded and championed by good leaders, inclusive leaders who care passionately about supporting people to realise outcomes that matter to them. So policy has a good starting point. And actually, to add to that as well, good policy should be regularly reviewed, not every 2 years, but good policy should be ingrained in anything and everything that you do around the functions of an organisation. So yeah, good policy counts for a lot. Training counts for a lot as well. So if people have varying degrees of knowledge, skills and confidence around addressing inequality, then it's worth your while investing. It doesn't just take money at all. It's a myth. There is a lot of talented people out there, a lot of talented people that I work with, loads of talented people out there who are quite capable. If you invest time in developing, co-designing meaningful, competent training around inequality and health equity. And not just, when I'm saying training, I'm not just talking about the kind of corporate style mandatory trials training that you might do once every 2 years. There's different types of training you can do. You can do masterclasses, which delve into specific issues and topics that might mean more to certain roles. Example, we looked at developing masterclasses for people who worked in strategic commissioning. We probably needed to know more about how to go about tackling health inequalities for large-scale populations. We then did different masterclasses for people working in finance roles to help them understand the value of health inequalities in relation to things like productivity and how it impacts demand as well. So there are different things you can do around that. So that's the second thing, training. The third thing, toolkits. So having toolkits where people can access resources that matter to them is really important. There are loads and loads of resources out there, but actually they become more meaningful when people are able to relate to tools that matter to them and matter to their role. And actually they become more meaningful as well where you have champions nudging people on a regular basis, helping them navigate things and giving them a nudge to make them aware of new things that are made available as well. So toolkits are really, really important. And toolkits in a way where people can dip in and dip out in ways that matter to them. If they're, I don't know, if they don't want to lobby for a change of some kind, if they want to make people aware of some kind of issue that's affecting certain parts of their population, then yeah. And toolkits are only really effective if people are hungry enough and leaders are out there really encouraging people to be hungry and to learn and to be intuitive and to want to make a difference. The fourth thing, are we on the fourth thing? I don't know, I've lost count now. Challenging in the right way, I think. So not only if you're just a champion, but I think if you think about it, if you imagine if you're in a scenario where you've got an organisation that creates a set of conditions where it's safe to challenge in the right way, where if you spot something or a decision that's about to be made, and there's things that the decision makers need to be made aware of that will make a profound difference to a set of outcomes, then yeah, people should have a set of conditions where they're allowed to do that. Things aren't only driven by one factor, so they're not only driven by quality and safety, they're not only driven by financial aspects, they're not only driven by inequalities. There are lots of little nuances to take into account that influence good outcomes that tackle inequality. And all of those things need to be taken into account holistically. So yeah, there's that as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think, number five we're on. Number 5 is around trying to find links between things. So trying to find links between why we're seeing poor levels of access, experience and outcomes, and how that relates to reducing demand and reducing product or increasing productivity. So trying to find those links between things. The reason you do that is that when you find the link, people who may not see a relevance or a connection, when they see a link, they can start to understand, right, how it might relate to them in their role. Because obviously people have a different lens, they look at things differently, which is perfectly fine. But until you find links between things, it's difficult, I suppose, for people to gauge what it means to them and what role they'll play in trying to tackle a problem. I really hope that makes sense, because that bit's really, really important. The last but one is about accountability, which I suppose is similar to the challenging in the right way, but yeah, there does need to be a level of accountability when we're tackling equality or trying to achieve equity. It really does. Really, I suppose the framework around that should be set out in policy. But when that's there, the accountability should be a living, breathing thing. It shouldn't just sit in kind of places where you might do an annual report. It should be a continual, live, living, breathing thing, accountability, where we're holding each other to account in a fair, inclusive way, but we're also prepared at any time, I suppose, to be really upfront and honest about things that we're not sure about, and just be humble about it, that we can't know everything, we don't know the answers to all the problems. And being accountable is just being honest about that. It's not being defensive. And then the last one, about how you can go about embedding an equality lens in an organisation, is about having a community of practice, creating a set of conditions where you have a community, like any community, an effective, valuable community is one that talks to each other, that supports each other, that shares ideas, that is willing to learn from one another, that is interested in one another's strengths and assets and skills. And like any good, solid community that wants to develop and sustain itself, you've got to do all of those things to make it a success. But yeah, there we go. I hope that was helpful. In the next video, I don't know what I'll be doing in the next video, because this one was kind of off the cuff, so hence the walking around my flat quite a bit. So I'm probably going to start looking at different topics going forwards, probably related a bit more to things like well-being and mental health, and the relation between that and inequalities. Yeah, but for now, I hope you have a good day, stay cool, hydrate, and yeah, it'll be good to hear from you in the comments what your thoughts are, if you've had any challenges or issues yourself in trying to embed the things I've spoken about today. And yeah, especially if you've got any comments, please put them in the chat. And then yeah, I really appreciate support if you subscribe to the channel and leave a like. And yeah, have a good day and take care. Cheers. Bye bye.